We're attempting to drive one of the hardest roads in the world. So it's not surprising along the way we've had a few little problems. Like the time we broke our engine in Baja. See. Or like the time a month later when we broke the new engine.
We got 9 kilometres up and then we lost power and the engine cut out.
Eventually we decided to stop breaking engines and so did something more productive, like fix our rusty front beam. The problem with rust is, once you find it everywhere. We couldn't leave Mexico without one more major mechanical problem.
So once again we are in a mechanic, more problems, and it looks like our gearbox is completely fucked.
Sweating your water. And we almost made it all the way through Central America without needing anything major repairing. And then we hit Panama.
We've got a major engine problem.
And that is why we find ourselves here, in a garage in Ecuador, trying to repair more than we've ever repaired on Ruby in an attempt to do the rest of South America without needing to do anything else that requires major surgery.
I've been asked to explain what the big rewire is about, I suppose. This is the old fuse board.
The original VW one?
No, this is from
Ford
KA, as is actually a lot of our front electrics. If you need to ever replace your wiper motor, Ford KA is a direct bolt-on. Handy hint. Anyway, I had access to a Ford KA and I ripped out its wiring loom and I stole all of its electrics because we built Ruby on a budget, and to buy proper fuse boards, all the fuses and everything is quite expensive, and wire is expensive as well. So I thought I'd fit this thingy bob. Now there's two problems with this really. One, it's a complete mess, but that's my fault for wiring it and then adding and adding and adding to it. And secondly, it has no relay housing. We have...
Very quickly, explain to me what a relay is.
A relay is a big switch. A relay is when you use a... Oh, I was looking for a relay. Let me get one.
What's that red thing?
Yeah, that's wired in. Here's a relay. A relay is when you use a smaller current to switch a bigger current on.
So why would you need that?
Because if you had to have a switch that was rated high enough to carry that current, you might have really chunky switches. So for example, nice pretty dashboard switches like this little dinky switch might not have enough current rating to carry the load for what you want to use it for. So just because I want to run a high powered light doesn't mean I want a big switch. And you can actually see a great example because it's burnt. That's carrying too high a load. So you would then use a relay where this switch would trigger this, and this would carry the heavy duty wiring. And this is going to be in our brand new fuse board, and it would be outside somewhere. So it allows you that option. I mean, the VW already had two relays. It has one which is a specific one to do the flashing for the indicators, and it has one which is here. Check out that old school relay, and that's for the headlights, because again, headlights use quite a lot of power and we need to trigger like the two sides and stuff. So relays can also be used to give you more electrical options without going into it massively. Like I have this one set so that when the ignition, it meets a certain set of conditions, so like the ignition's on and the lights are on, and that means the door buzzer will trigger. Because otherwise, if I just had the options of like it on off, it would always be on or it would always be off, but I need it to be on only when the lights are on, so that you know you've left your lights on.
For you, because you always do that.
You're the terror. Our old fuse board has double the amount of fuses of the original. It was basically wired up as the VW board was wired with extras. I don't think the wiring for the original fuse board makes a lot of sense. They seem to put one hell of a lot of fuses in that don't really seem necessary. I'm sure someone's going to tell me why I'm wrong, but I'm going to change it all, because this we had problems, didn't we?
It just couldn't cope when we had everything on, which didn't happen all the time, but there would always be this one occasion we'd be driving up a mountain road in the dark with our lights on, it'd be raining.
It's always when you have that one situation where you're like,
then all of a sudden the stereo would stop and go in, and then the lights would dim and
the headlights would flash to the wiper. So that's an indication that the load is just wrong. Like the wires and the load and the drawer, it's not wired correctly and it cannot handle that. And I think part of the problem is this is what we had. This is a bit bigger. This is what we need. This is actually a few less fuses, but as you can see, it's relay blocks here. So all our relays are kind of just randomly like hanging under the dash or
like
cable tied on.
Easter egg hunt.
It was terrible. So now we have actual proper designated relay blocks. So it's going to be super tidy is the plan. And I've also rated the wiring. So the VW original system, this wire is the sole wire that comes from the back down to the front.
It's tiny.
I mean, it will carry a fair amount, and also obviously you have to make sure the earths are like appropriate to the system. But I think now that we've added so many auxiliary systems, I like to tell you what we've got, because obviously you had the headlights and the flasher standard on this system. We have an uprated horn, door buzzer I sped, which isn't very much power, but we're going to use it. We've added intermittent wipe to our washer unit. Again, Ford KA system, you can take that. We've got 2 for the central locking. I'm going to probably fit an ignition relay to trigger up all the other relays as well. And we also have our roof rack lights. So I have a lot more. So generally speaking, when you do electrics, it's better to put heavier duty wiring in. It's better to have it too big than too small, because too small won't handle a load correctly. You also have to account for voltage drop. The wire's coming all the way from the back. It's a really long way away, all the way down here, so it's important that the wire's big enough. And I've got this beastie.
That looks better.
I was already here because I had I had other systems. I tried to fix this a
Is that
bit.
a bag of shame?
This is spares. Oh look, the spares are escaping. I fitted this like kind of mini fuse board. I know it's terrible. I know. It's bad. But the idea was to take off some of the bigger loads off the other fuse board. But I honestly think a large part of our problem has been the earthing. The only earthing system that comes on this is here. This is the earthing point. These little spade terminals that have a habit of falling off, and I hate, yeah, I mean, there weren't enough paint on them, but so I think a really solid earth will help us as well. And then hopefully we have a much better system. Now I just got to wire it.
So this is the fun part.
This is my wiring diagram. Yeah, I kind of actually weirdly enjoy it.
You're a bit of a freak roll.
I know. And I got new tools. Tool. Because I'm not redoing the whole thing without wire strip as an actual crimper.
You don't just want to tape it?
No.
No?
Oh, and I have heat shrink.
And you have a blowtorch that works again?
Yes, we have fixed the soldering iron as well. So it's the goal is proper job.
Right, I better leave you to it then. I'll come check on you in a bit.
You already saw my wiring diagram, which is great, but then I realised that actually that's based on the fuse board being like this in the van.
But you're going to turn it around?
But it's going to be this way because of the wire lengths that we already have.
You don't just turn your diagram the other way around?
No. Because well, then it's upside down and all the writing's upside down, and so I'm using it that way, and then this is the correct version
as you go.
As I go, so I know what I did because I want a proper wiring diagram for our system. And here's baby steps.
Ooh, it's begun. What have you got then? Let me just have a. You talk whilst I look at it, and you can point at things. Okay, so the battery main is going to come into here and bolt onto this. The big cable that's going to power up this one, ignition relay, which will then give power to these 3 relays, which is the horn, fog, roof lights. So that's going to come out here. So they'll only come on when the ignition's on. Yeah, and the relays will only come on when the ignition's on as well. So these will be the fuses for them here, and then they'll go out to the switches. So it'll come from, like the fog one will come here, and then I got to wire in the switch that is somewhere, like this switch for example. Okay. That is going to go into the relay. That's going to trigger the relay. This will be earthed out. And then when I switch this, the relay powers up, and this will be the main load coming out. Which means I have to add some more wiring because they weren't on relays before, they were just straight wired. So like this has to change. But it's fine. These are our permanent lives because I have the smaller wire from the original system. I'm going to wire it into the stuff that doesn't take very much load, like the dash, the clock, the radio. Obviously you want it permanent live, otherwise it loses all your settings every time you turn off the ignition, and you want the immobilizer to be permanent live, and you want... What else do you want permanent live, huh? You want central locking. Otherwise you can't open your doors. So those kind of things are going to have permanent live feeds to them. Okay, good job, Rolf. Yeah, well, it looks kind of scary, I think, but it's fine. Lost something there, but don't worry. You found it, huh? That's my mischief.